Hare Krishna. I'll start off the kirtan. I'm going to be moderating because my husband's having some throat issues. So he's given me his notes. Namam Vishnu Padaya Krishpastaya Vutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Jamani. Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pacharine. Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatyari Shatarine. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Maharaj, would you be so kind as to recite the Prema Dwani prayers? I need to go get something. If not Maharaj, then Jayanta Mataji.
Jai Om Vishnupad Paramansu Paripradhikacharya Stotra Satasri Srimad A.C. Bhakti Vedanta Swami Maharaj Prabhupada Ki Jai Ananta Koti Vaishnavrinda Ki Jai Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai Prem Se Kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shiva Sadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai Sri Sri Radha Krishna Gop Gopinath Sham Kund Radha Kundigiri Govardhan Ki Jai Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai Navadip Dham Ki Jai Jagannath Puri Ki Jai Gangamai Ki Jai Jamunamai Ki Jai Tulsi Devi Ki Jai Bhakti Devi Ki Jai Samaveta Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. Gaur Premanande. Hari Hari.
Thank you, Maharaj. Welcome everyone to Srimad Bhagavatam class with His Holiness Jayadvaita Swami and friends. And tonight we are starting off with third canto, chapter 29, text 3. And the name of that chapter is Explanation of Devotional Service by Lord Kapila. So I guess we'll get started right off with text 3. And today is March 6, 2024. And that's in East Coast of United States. Maharaj, you're still in Mayapur? All right. So I'll start off with the verse. Text 3. Virago yena purusho bhagavan sarvato bhavet achakshva jiva lokasya vividha mama samsriti. And I forgot. Om namo bhagavate vasudevaya. Om namo bhagavate vasudevaya. Om namo bhagavate vasudevaya. Translation. Devahuti continued, "My dear Lord, please also describe in detail, both for me and for people in general, the continual process of birth and death, for by hearing such calamities, we may become detached from the activities of this material world." Purport by Srila Prabhupada. In this verse, the word samsritihi is very important. Shreya Sriti means the prosperous path of advancement towards the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and samsriti means the continued journey on the path of birth and death towards the darkest region of material existence. People who have no knowledge of this material world, God, and their actual intimate relationship with Him are actually going to the darkest region of material existence in the name of progress in the material advancement of civilization. To enter the darkest region of material existence means to enter into a species of life other than the human species. Ignorant men do not know that after this life, they are completely under the grip of material nature and will be offered a life which may not be very congenial. How a living entity gets different kinds of bodies will be explained in the next chapter. This continual change of bodies in birth and death is called samsara. Devahuti requests her glorious son, Kapila Muni, to explain about this continued journey to impress upon the conditioned souls that they are undergoing a path of degradation by not understanding the path of bhakti yoga, devotional service. Om Ajnanatimirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Mena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. So Maharaj, I have some verses here from Srila Vishwanath. I'm going to share the notes given by my husband first, and then I'll invite you to speak if you like. So he quotes, "By hearing of such calamities, we may become detached from the activities of this material world." He says, most people steer clear of discussing such calamities. They'd rather do anything but. Nor do most people want to become detached, so such a benediction wouldn't appeal to them in the slightest. People who have no knowledge of this material world, God, and their actual intimate relationship with Him are actually going to the darkest region of material existence in the name of progress and the material advancement of civilization. So Krishna says, Mata smritir jnanam apohanam cha. You want to forget? Okay. They shove that knowledge aside. Apohanam. Devahuti requests her glorious son, Kapila Muni, to explain about this continued journey to impress upon the conditioned souls. She asks so that others may hear. This is the nature of Bhagavad Gita and a recurring theme in the Srimad Bhagavatam. A great soul asks questions that he or she knows the answer to, but wants to hear the presentation of the great soul being questioned. And that's why we come to the Srimad Bhagavatam class with Jayadvaita Swami, instead of reading Bhagavatam on our own at home. Well, not instead of, in addition to. I was just going to add one little thing. I was just reading today about how when Uddhava instructs Vidura to take instruction from Maitreya Muni, and Vidura, he's instructed to ask about the Lord, but Vidura starts asking about the common man, and Prabhupada says in the purport, I don't remember the details so much, but he says this is his humility, that he's not, he doesn't think himself qualified to hear immediately about the Lord. He wants to know what the common man needs to know. So that's being echoed here in these remarks by my husband, that the great devotees ask questions, even if they know everything, because they want to hear from the great soul that is doing the instructing. So it just makes it more relishable. Anyways, thank you. Hare Krishna. Any comments, Maharaj, please?
Om Jnana-timirandasya Jnananjana-shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Jnana Tasmai Shri Gurave. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur comments, to begin bhakti, one needs a little detachment. So this, as Prabhupada said, this discussion of Sanskriti leads to detachment, or is conducive to detachment. Shreyastratim bhakti-rudasyate vibho. The path of devotional service is Shreyastratim, the auspicious path, and the path of birth and death, Mrityu Samsara Vartmani, is Sanskriti. So the Devahuti is asking for her own benefit and for the benefit of others to hear about Sanskriti. It's good for us. It's not that we're only meant to hear about loving dealings. We're meant to hear how miserable the material world is, how horrible, how much suffering there is in material existence. Because that leads to detachment, and to begin devotional service, one needs a little detachment. So the topic is essential. Hare Krishna.
Maharaj, this detachment, is this can be the idea of being materially exhausted be considered being detached, or is it, is that just being fed up
Well,
with
they go
suffering?
together. When we're materially exhausted, we've been exhausted means we're trying to do something, and then we become exhausted.
Mm.
So we're trying to enjoy this material existence, but we become exhausted. I'm trying, but so when we become exhausted, then one response is to become detached. It's too much work. We let it go. We wanted it, we tried for it, or we would try for it, but when we're exhausted, we say, "Oh, just forget it. Just forget it. Maybe I'd like to go to Disneyland, or maybe I'd like to go to Spain or wherever. But when I'm exhausted, then forget it. I become detached. What else can I do?" So they go together.
Maharaj. So there are two meanings of exhausted. One is to be tired beyond measure, and the other is to be empty or depleted. So is what you're saying, does that cover both meanings, or can
Yeah,
we
they
say,
go together.
yeah?
Exhausted means I've run out of energy.
Mhm. Or could it be also the desire to try to enjoy? I've given up trying to enjoy.
Exhausted, it all goes together.
Okay. There is a comment from Saraswati Mataji. Pranams. We see sometimes during preaching that some people are simply put off by what they term as doom and gloom, and are reluctant to hear about the truth of spiritual knowledge, birth, death, reincarnation, futility of sense gratification, but there is no sugarcoating the truth either. Any comments, Maharaj? I was just thinking, if somebody is put off, maybe that just means they're not ready, and so let them enjoy for a while longer, and then when they're exhausted trying to enjoy, then they'll appreciate the doom and gloom. All right. So text 4, I had invited Radesha in the chat to read. Is he available? And if not, I'm going to invite Priyanka Mataji if she's available.
Yes, Mataji.
Hare Krishna, thank you.
Hare Krishna. कालेशेश्वरूपस्य परेषां च परस्य ते स्वरूपं बत कुर्वन्ते यद्धेतु कुशलं जनः. Please also describe eternal time, which is a representation of your form and by whose influence people in general engage in the performance of pious activities. Purport. However ignorant one may be regarding the path of good fortune and the path down to the darkest region of ignorance, everyone is aware of the influence of eternal time, which devours all the effects of our material activities. The body is born at a certain time, and immediately the influence of time acts upon it. From the date of the birth of the body, the influence of death is also acting. The advancement of age entails the influence of time on the body. If a man is 30 or 50 years old, then the influence of time has already devoured 30 or 50 years of the duration of his life. Everyone is conscious of the last stage of life when he will meet the cruel hands of death. But some consider their age and circumstances, concern themselves with the influence of time, and thus engage in pious activities so that in the future they will not be put into a low family or an animal species. Generally, people are attached to sense enjoyment and so aspire for life on the heavenly planets. Therefore, they engage themselves in charitable or other pious activities. But actually, as stated in Bhagavad Gita, one cannot get relief from the chain of birth and death even if he goes to the highest planet, Brahmaloka, because the influence of time is present everywhere within this material world. In the spiritual world, however, the time factor has no influence. Mm. ओम अज्ञानतिमिरन्धस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनशलाकया चक्षुरुन्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः. This is reminding me of actually multiple examples. One is of the Indradev when he got cursed by Brihaspati, his guru, when he did not respect him enough, and he had fallen down into the material, I mean, into the lower planet, earthly planets from the heavenly kingdom. And he also got a body of a hawk, and he did not want to leave that body because he thought that is the ultimate enjoyment one can get. Even when Narad Muni came to get him back to his heavenly abode. So this material world, it entangles us. Even in whichever body we are, we think that this is the ultimate happiness that I can get. Like the frog who is in the well, think that it's the only world. Another thing about and that mention about the influence of time, like how the Mataji, my baby woke up. Actually, I need to. Um,
Thank
Mataji,
you,
can you
Mataji.
please?
Sorry, were you speaking?
Yeah, Mataji, can you please take over because
Sure.
my baby has woken up. Yeah.
So thank you. Maharaj, any comments?
The Kala Rupa, Kala Ishwar Rupa. Kala is Ishwar Rup, the form of the Supreme Controller. God is Ishvara, Parameshwara, the Supreme Controller, and Kal is the Supreme Controller. Even those who don't acknowledge God have to acknowledge time. That's nothing they can do about it. It's interesting. They deny a supreme controller. There's no God. There's no controller. Jagadahu Anishara. But here's the supreme controller. You can't get away from this. Whatever kind of atheist, agnostic you may be, you have to acknowledge the control of time. And if you're philosophical, you might ask, where does time come from? Why is there time? Or if you're a kid, philosophers and kids are sometimes similar. They ask questions. So an intelligent person will ask, why is there time? Why am I under time's control? I don't want to grow up. I don't want to grow old. And I have no choice in the matter. Why is that? Why is that? Time destroys everything. Time takes away everything. Loka kshaya krit pravritto. So why? This is more doom and gloom, of course. We don't want to hear about it. But there it is. The time, as it gives everything. In time, we get whatever we get. But time also eventually takes everything away. So we're under the control of time. We can't fight against time. So that Isha Rupa, time is the form of the Supreme Controller or the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Paresham, Jat, Parasyate, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, by whose influence everyone's engaged. Kurvanti yat heto. Heto means cause. Because of time, everyone is engaged in activities. And here, kushalam jana. Kushal means pious, agreeable, pious activities, kushala. Kurvanti, people perform pious activities by the influence of time. Of course, the pious activities or impious activities are both binding. Therefore, it's said, what is that? I've forgotten the verse I had in mind. But in any case, the Shubha Shubha Palare Bam Mokshase Karma Bandhanai. One, in Krishna consciousness, one is freed both from pious and impious results. The pious results Prabhupada mentions. By pious activities, one can go to the heavenly planets. One can enjoy heavenly pleasures. But Abraham Bhuvana Loka Punaravartin. Even from the highest planet, one has to come down, also by the influence of time. Shrine Punye Martya Lokam Vishanti. When one's pious activities are run out, when they're exhausted, then one has to come back down. So but Prabhupada mentions in the spiritual world, there's no time. Time has no influence. Okay.
Maharaj, do the demigods have any privileged knowledge about what happens after they're done with their stint as demigods?
Yeah, they know that they'll come down.
But they don't know specifically.
There's prayers like that in Bhagavatam where they acknowledge that their pious activities will run out. And they pray sometimes, this is 5th canto, I think, that if we have any pious activities, pious credit left, then let us be born on earth, because the earth is the suitable place for spiritual realization. The hellish planets are too difficult, and the heavenly planets are difficult in another way. Too much sense gratification. So the earth is considered, and also, yes, considered the best place for Krishna consciousness. So the demigods sometimes pray, let us take birth on earth.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Oh wait, here's one from Priyanka Mataji. Maharaj, I heard in one of the lectures that Brahmaji goes back to the spiritual world after his tenure is completed. Is that true?
Yes. The quotation is there in the Bhagavad Gita, is mentioned. That Lord Brahma and his associates go back to return to the spiritual world. Let me see if I have something right in front of me about that. Maybe not. No. But the Brahma, there are sages who are on Brahmaloka and who are there with, let's see, with the idea of following Lord Brahma in devotional service. So they, at the time of devastation, they go to Vaikuntha along with Lord Brahma. They're engaged in the service of the Yagya Purusha, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and such enlightened persons go back to Godhead. Otherwise, those who are less fortunate come down.
There's a comment from my husband in the chat box. I'm sorry, were you done, Maharaj?
Mm-hmm.
He says, Devahuti here uses the word bhatta. Oh, this is often used to express wonder or surprise or amazement. She evidently is asking in a particular mood.
Mm. Yeah. She's keen to hear these topics. It's not just idle.
She says she's a good audience. Bianca says, thank you, Maharaj. So we'll move on to text 5, unless you have more to say, Maharaj. So moving on to text 5, and Dr. Ross will be reading.
Ukashya mitya bimater chakshusha chiram prasuptasya tamasim nashraye shantasya karmas anuvidaya diya tvam arirasi kila yoga bhaskara. My dear Lord, you are just like the sun, for you illuminate the darkness of the conditional life of the living entities. Because their eyes of knowledge are not open, they are sleeping eternally in that darkness without your shelter. And therefore they are falsely engaged by the actions and reactions of their material activities, and they appear to be very fatigued. It appears that Srimati Devahuti, the glorious mother of Lord Kapila Dev, is very compassionate for the regrettable condition of people in general, who, not knowing the goal of life, are sleeping in the darkness of illusion. It is the general feeling of the Vaishnava or devotee of the Lord that he should awaken them. Similarly, Devahuti is requesting her glorious son to illuminate the lives of the conditioned souls so that their most regrettable conditional life may be ended. The Lord is described herein as Yoga Bhaskara, the son of the system of all yoga. Devahuti has already requested her glorious son to describe Bhakti Yoga, and the Lord has described Bhakti Yoga as the ultimate yoga system. Bhakti Yoga is the sun-like illumination for delivering the conditioned souls, whose general condition is described here. They have no eyes to see their own interests. They do not know that the goal of life is not to increase the material necessities of existence, because the body will not exist more than a few years. The living beings are eternal, and they have their eternal need. If one engages only in caring for the necessities of the body, not caring for the eternal necessities of life, then he is part of a civilization whose advancement puts living entities in the darkest region of ignorance. Sleeping in that darkest region, one does not get any refreshment, but rather gradually becomes fatigued. He invents many processes to adjust this fatigued condition, but he fails and thus remains confused. The only path for mitigating his fatigue in the struggle for existence is the path of devotional service or the path of Krishna consciousness.
Care to share any thoughts? Maharaj? Maharaj, if you're speaking, we're not hearing.
We have to unmute. The lokasya mityabhimater, the people in general, loka, mitya abhimater, they're bewildered by false ego, and achakrusha. Achakrusha means blind. They have no eyes. Chiram prasuptasya tamasi. And they're, since a long time, chiram prasuptasya, they're deeply asleep. Suptas, asleep, prasupta, deeply asleep, tamasi, in ignorance, in darkness. And anashraya, with no shelter. This is, and shranta, karmashu, anuvidhaya. Shranta means exhausted, fatigued. Shranta. The living beings are karmasu in their karmic activities, in their work. They're fatigued. They're fatigued. Shranta. So you're like the sun, yoga bhaskar. Bhaskar means the sun. Bhaskar, which gives illumination. You're like the sun, which can dry up the pools of material existence, or it can give light for the bewildered living beings. Ashrantas, anashraya, they have no shelter, but the shelter is there. They just have to take that shelter. So Devahuti is asking about these topics for her own interests and for the interests of the bewildered living beings. There's no need to describe their situation, but she describes it out of pity or to invoke the Lord's pity. This is their situation, or this is our situation. And you can dispel the darkness of illusion by your instructions. Please do so. Oh, there's also one other point, that out of fatigue, the living entities are trying to enjoy, but they're fatigued. And so they invent many processes to adjust this fatigued condition. They invent many processes. They're trying to, the expression is make a silk purse of a sow's ear. To make a silk purse of a sow's ear. They try to make the material world somehow or other enjoyable by this invention, by that invention. Literal inventions, they invent machines and computer programs and what have you to alleviate their fatigue. Or they invent different kinds of entertainment, enjoyment. Or they think they'll get free by some political movement or by some social movement for social upliftment, then we won't be fatigued. But no, nothing will work. Even though they invent many processes to adjust. They all fail and one remains confused until one comes to the path of devotional service.
Thank you, Maharaj. Saraswati Mataji has her hand up, and then we'll read in the chat box.
Yeah, just a quick comment. Sometimes we hear that sleeping in the lap of Maya, which always makes me think lap, where we think of our mother's lap. With Maya's lap is nothing like a mother's lap. It's basically a lap made of thorns. There's no sleeping in one sense. And also I just wanted to share that I guess in some ways I'm so naive, but my daughter was working for one of the top 4 accounting firms to get her CPA, and some of the things I hear, it is so horrible. I didn't realize that. I mean, well, I guess I should have realized the corporate world, it's just all nasty, nasty. They work you so much that you can't even sleep. You're just consumed by work. You're just a workhorse. You're just like it can be so impersonal. And she was just telling me, these students, they just like herself, they can't, there's no time to sleep. It's just a performance evaluation, and it's so horrible. She's actually thinking of giving it up, and she was trying to explain to me that that they have no morals, and then the way they deal with this stress is through alcohol and cigarette and illicit sex, and this is their coping mechanism. And it's just, I didn't realize that it's just so ugly and just so horrible. The people are just struggling, and even if they make some money, they can't even enjoy. Their bodies are so weary. They can't even really, they don't even have time to enjoy. Anyway, Hare Krishna.
Well, we can at least feel grateful that women now have the opportunity to fully participate in that kind of miserable life. They're no longer bound to stay at home with their children and families. They can enter the corporate world and suffer equally with men. This is Prabhupada's adjustment. We weren't happy at home. Now we'll go to the work, we'll go to the office, we'll go to the corporate world, and then we'll be happy. Then in the corporate world, we're miserable, so we're feeling suicidal. So then that's okay. We have drugs. We have this medication and that medication. So this adjustment, that adjustment, inventing different ways to adjust their fatigued condition. Nothing works other than Krishna consciousness.
Jai Maharaj. There's a comment from Marai Gupta Prabhu in the chat. He says, Hare Krishna. I remember being surprised to read birth listed as one of the problems of this world. Usually it's a joyous event and family members are so happy. But Bhagavatam lays bare the realities of the situation, knowing that one can only wish that an individual never takes birth again in this horrible place. My husband also says in the chat, regarding prasupta, deep sleep, how to awaken someone who does not want to be awakened, but rather wants only to improve the quality of their dream.
Well, we're trying by sound, actually. Anavriti Shabdat. When nothing else works, none of the other senses, then sound may work. So they may want to awaken, not want to awaken, but this transcendental sound may help them. Therefore, kirtan, books, one way or another, we're trying how to awaken them, how to awaken them, how to awaken them.
Good. Shall we move on to text 6? I invited Madhurika Mataji in the chat to read, but I don't know if she saw it or not. If she's not available to read text 6, then I would invite Saraswati Mataji to read. I'll give her 5 seconds. Okay, Saraswati, would you please go ahead?
Text 6.
Correct.
Maitreya uvacha iti matur vachya slakshanam pratinandya mahamuni abhabhyasa kuru shreshta pratistama karunarditaha. Translation. Sri Maitreya said, O best among the gurus, the The great sage Kapila, moved by great compassion and pleased by the words of his glorious mother, spoke as follows. Purport. Lord Kapila was very satisfied by the request of his glorious mother because she was thinking not only in terms of her personal salvation but in terms of all the fallen conditional souls. The Lord is always compassionate towards the fallen souls of this material world, and therefore he comes himself or sends his confidential servants to deliver them. Since he is perpetually compassionate towards them, if some of his devotees also become compassionate towards them, he is very pleased with the devotees. In Bhagavad Gita, it is clearly stated that persons who are trying to elevate the condition of the fallen souls by preaching the conclusion of Bhagavad Gita, namely full surrender unto the personality of Godhead, are very dear to him. Thus, when the Lord saw that his beloved mother was very compassionate towards the fallen souls, he was pleased, and he also became compassionate towards her. So I was just thinking how without the mercy and the association of devotees, there's absolutely no chance of ever engaging in bhakti yoga and actually becoming an eternal servitor of Krishna. And today I came across a quote that in Madhya Leela, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was saying, Brahmanda Brahmita Kona Bharyanti Bhagyavan Jiva. If one is fortunate to be blessed by the association of devotees, only then can he become Krishna conscious. So, and we know that Bhaktivinoda Thakur was saying Jiva Jago Jago, because exactly conditional souls are just sleeping in this deep sleep, and unless we are awakened by a pure devotee, it's not possible to really wake up and understand our precarious condition in this material world. And just as Maharaj was saying, we try to make these adjustments which always fail. We know they're going to actually fail. There's no making adjustments. We just have to get out of this material world and become servitors of the servants of Krishna. And it's made it quite clear that those devotees who take the risk of preaching to the ignorant masses, how dear they become to Krishna. And we know that Srila Prabhupada, he risked everything in order to come and awaken those conditional souls everywhere, all around the world. And without him, we know where we all would be right now. There would be zero chance of having any chance of becoming a devotee. So it's really nice that this compassionate nature of the devotees, it's so essential. So there's just a couple of things that I wanted to say. Oh, and another thing I came across today, actually, which I made a note of it. Sri Vidyapati had said, Tatala Saikate Vari Bindu Sama Sutamita Ramani Samadya. Material sense gratification, we think that in society we can get all happiness with friendship and love in our family, but he says that is compared to a drop of water in a desert, which can never completely satisfy the parched conditional soul. What is the value of a single drop when you need so much water? So that really struck out to me, that sometimes we think that our family and we can be protected or we can continue to be happy, but this is all just another extension of an illusion. Hare Krishna.
Okay. Maharaj?
Two words, Prita and Karuna Ardita. Karuna means mercy, Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu, and Ardita, moved, touched. So this is Krishna's nature. He's Karuna Sindhu. He's compassionate. That's one of Krishna's transcendental qualities. And Prita, he was pleased because he saw this compassion in his mother also. She was feeling sorry for the conditioned souls. Natratasman manusheshu kashtin me priyakritama. Krishna becomes very much pleased when a devotee is thinking of what to do to benefit the poor, suffering living entities. Yes.
There's no, I'm sorry, that's the next verse I was thinking. Commentary by Srila Vishwanath. So one thing I was thinking of with talking about exhaustion is that people are exhausted when they're not getting any satisfaction from their work. You know, you can work at something, and if you get satisfaction from it, then yeah, you take a little rest, but you have energy to go on. And it's very rare in this world. People usually get fed up even with things that they supposedly love. But then we see Srila Prabhupada, who, slept, 3 hours and then maybe took a nap in the afternoon, and he was just translating all the time and traveling and speaking. And he was elderly by material calculation, but he seemed to have incredible energy. And that's because he was not doing something that was just a waste of time. He was, plugged into the spiritual energy, the spiritual, that's where he lived. And so his energy, was his disciples would say that they had a hard time keeping up with him sometimes, or all the time. So we're exhausted because we're not getting anything. We're not getting what we really need from all our activities. So if we surrender to Krishna, then we're tapped into that, and so we have the enthusiasm to keep going. And if we don't, then we have to look at ourselves and see what we're not doing right. We may have some materialistic expectation from our service, and we need to correct that, because if we truly are, in the right consciousness and doing the right thing, then yeah, the material body, we're not Prabhupada, but the material body needs rest, but we do get satisfaction and energy from doing service. Just a thought. There's a comment in the text. Mahatmanas tumam parta daivim pakritim ashritaha. It's from Priyanka Mataji. So
Prabhupada mentions that because she was compassionate toward the living beings, he became compassionate toward her. This is significant. As the devotee becomes more and more compassionate to others, becomes more and more an object of compassion. Okay.
So we have reached the end of our time. And we can have kirtan. And I would like to invite Bhakti Dana Mataji to lead the kirtan if she's able. Are you there? Oh, okay. Well, if she's not there, I noticed Radhesha Prabhu is in the house. So if you are available, please All right, I'm going to try one more time, and if
I'll chant.
Madhupati, Hare Krishna. Jai.
Namam Vishnupadaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Iti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Sunyavati Paschatya Deshatarine Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Sivasadi Gaur Bhaktavrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Bol Premanande Hari 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 Bol Jai Vishnupad Paramahansa Parvatikarya Stotra Sada Sri Srimad Divine Grace Shri Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai Jai Vishnupad Paramahansa Parvatikarya Stotra Sada Sri Srimad Divine Grace Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Maharaj Goswami Prabhupada Ki Jai आनंद कौटि वैष्णव की जना विचार हरिदास ठाकुर की जय प्रेम से कहो श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर शिव सदि गौर भक्त की जय जय श्री श्री राधा कृष्ण गोप गोपीनाथ श्याम कुंड राधा कुंड गिरी गोवर्धननाथ जी की जय वृंदावन धाम की जय मायापुर नाथ धाम की जय नीलाचल क्षेत्र श्री जगन्नाथपुरी धाम की जय भक्ति देवी की जगंगमा यमुना की जय श्रीमद तुलसी महारानी की जय बृहत मृदंग टंसन की मुक्ति सुविशन की जय हरिनाम संकीर्तन की जय नित्याय गौर प्रेमानंदे हरि हरि All glories to assembled devotees, all glories to assembled devotees, all glories to assembled devotees. Shri Jayadvaita Swami Maharaj ki jai.
Thank you, Madhupati Prabhu.
Samvika Bhaktivinoda ki jai.
Jai.
Gaur Premanande
Hari Hari Bol.
Yo. Jai Bhakti Jai Kendra Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
Thank you again, Madhupati Prabhu. Thank you, Maharaj, for leading us in the discussion. And thank you all for participating and attending. And all glories to the pujaris of Krishna Balaram Mandir for dressing them in those adorable jumpers. Dressing the deities in those adorable jumpers. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Holiness Jayadvaita Maharaj ki jai.
Samaveta Bhaktivinoda ki jai.
Hare
Thank you
Krishna.
to Priya. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. So we look forward to seeing you all tomorrow for Caitanya-caritamrta class. And Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.